Hi, this is Ed Fitzpatrick. If you enjoy local politics as much as I do, be sure to join our friends at Rhode Island PBS for the show A Lively Experiment. Hosted by Jim Hummel, the weekly series features journalists, pundits, and politicians debating the stories and issues that matter most to us Rhode Islanders. Tune in to A Lively Experiment and be part of the conversation. Fridays at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS and wherever you get your podcasts. From the Boston Globe, this is Rhode Island Report. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the podcast where we bring you big conversations from our very small state. It's been more than 3 years since the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan and the Taliban took over. Now, it's the only country in the world that bans girls from going to school after 6th grade. Khadija Nazari escaped Afghanistan in 2021. Now, she's a Brown University student working to help the women who got left behind. She's teamed up with a group of Rhode Islanders to run a secret school for girls back in Kabul. Khadija is here with one of her board members, Ann Sliney, to tell us more. Khadija Nazari and Ann Sliney, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
To start with, Khadija, could you tell us your story of growing up in Afghanistan?
Yes, I was born in a very rural area of Afghanistan in Ghazni province, and then we moved to Kabul. I went to high school in Kabul. I went to American University of Afghanistan. Also, it was in Kabul, so it was a different day than what we have now.
Tell us what it was like before the Taliban took power in Afghanistan.
Before the Taliban, the situation was different. We had at least the freedom to go to school, and also we had dream, hope that one day we can change the situation in our country. We wanted to become the next leader. When I was in high school, I had a group of friends. We were so passionate about education and learning, and we never thought that someday this will happen.
And at the time, you were attending a university in Bangladesh?
Yes.
And then why did you have to come back to Afghanistan? Was that because of the pandemic?
Yes, it was because of the pandemic.
Where were you in August of 2021 when U.S. troops pulled out of Afghanistan and the Taliban seized Kabul?
I was in Kabul with my family. Suddenly, it was 3 a.m. in the morning that I just checked my Facebook, and then I saw the news. It was Al Jazeera broadcasting, showing that the Taliban went to Iraq, and it was like shocking for me and for everyone. I never believed, like no one would believe that they would take over the Afghanistan. So the fighting, it was happening in other far provinces of Afghanistan, like far away from Kabul. But I had never met any Talib in the city, like around Kabul. So it was a kind of, for me, unimaginable.
And this all happened really quickly, right? The Taliban took over in a matter of weeks.
Not even weeks. It was just in one day. Like there were Talib everywhere, in the street, outside, everywhere there was Talib.
And you said you had never seen the Taliban before. Do you remember when you first saw them? What did you see?
I thought, it is real. That what I heard from my mom, it is real. Like all the time she was telling the story, how they treated women, like how they forced women to get married at the age of 14 or 15. They were just taking out the girls that they wanted. Like they had long hair and long beards with gun and very dirty. Also, they were asking us that you have to cover your face and you're not allowed to smile or to talk or to do anything. So at that time, we realized, this is real. That's not something that is story. And then we received email from our school that we will try to get you all out. They sent the documentation that we needed, and then we received message that you have to live at this time you have to be in this certain area. And then when I went there to take the bus to get to the airport, and then we received the message that you shouldn't take on the bus and you shouldn't come to airport because it is not safe. So for the first time, it got cancelled. The next day, we received a message that you have to come in this certain time in this area. So for the second time, we were just circling around the airport about 48 hours or more.
Tell us about the scene at the airport.
It was a desperate moment that most of Afghan women, children, men, they just wanted to leave the country. It doesn't matter where, but they just wanted to live. There was crowd fighting, shooting, and crisis happening. The airport was not the same airport that I used to go. It was just destroyed everything. It was unbelievable situation. Till I can't believe that happened in Afghanistan. It was like a movie that something is going on. We were not among the people that they were walking because we had the documentation and everything. So we were inside the bus, and many people, they were approaching us, please, please, please open the window or just open the door of bus and take us too, because they knew that this bus is going to get to inside the airport. So they were asking, please just open the door. It just shown that how much people were desperate to get out of.
Did other people get on the bus, or were they?
No, of course, they were not allowed.
They weren't allowed, yeah.
They were inside the bus. We had two men. One was the driver and another that they were protecting us.
When did you know it was going to work, that you were going to be able to get out?
We didn't know. Because we had all the documentation, but we didn't know because we were going to leave, but the Taliban, they didn't allow us.
What were they saying? What would the Taliban say?
Because they were saying that you are a woman and you have to stay inside the country and you are not allowed to go. Why you are going abroad for study? What's that? It doesn't make sense to them. And also, they were saying that you don't have anyone to escort you, a mahram, which means you have to have your husband or your brothers.
We'll have more after a quick break. When you want to go beyond the headlines, let me recommend Rhode Island PBS Weekly. Rhode Island PBS Weekly is an award-winning news magazine broadcast that gives you the full story, powered by investigative journalism and narrative storytelling. New episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly drop Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Watch past episodes at ripbs.org/weekly. That's ripbs.org/weekly. How did you finally get off the bus and into that airplane?
For the second time, we returned back to home. So we were just hopeless. So we thought maybe we just would end up staying in Afghanistan. But the next day, we would receive a message and they asked us, don't take anything. Just have your cell phone. That's it.
Huh.
So I just had my cell phone and nothing else. Even I didn't have another clothes to change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we took the bus and we were in front of the gate from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then finally the Taliban allowed us and they asked us, you shouldn't have anything else with yourself except your passport and phone. So they were checking our documentation and they're, okay, go. One of the Taliban came and said, okay, go to your American father.
Wow.
And yeah, and then we were, okay, anyway, but we are leaving now. Yeah, then we left.
How did you feel?
I had a mixed feeling because I was feeling good because I left and I was not any longer had to go through this situation. But at the same time, I was feeling super guilty that I survived. And now I'm leaving my friends that we went to school together, my friends that we had dreamed together that one day we will go to abroad and we will study, we will continue our education. All these things all of a sudden shattered. So I feel a kind of responsibility because I have the freedom. I can go to school, get an education, but it's not easy.
Where did you go after you left Afghanistan?
We went to Saudi Arabia, and then from there Spain, from Spain to Wisconsin.
How did you get to Brown University?
I applied for Brown University, so I got to Brown University just for 1 year. They offered me a scholarship, and then I had to reapply at Brown because it was not for 4 years, and then I got accepted.
And what are you studying there?
I'm studying international and public affairs and entrepreneurship.
And what do you want to do in the future?
I want to help women economically. I want to empower them, and also I want to make sure to provide education for them.
Yeah, do you have friends, classmates that did not make it out, that were left behind?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been in touch with them?
I am in touch with them, so most of the friends that I had to know, they were passionate and wanted to become some person in the future, someone. But now, all of a sudden, like, they all became depressed and they are so desperate and they don't have anything. Like, they feel just helpless. They feel unheard and they think that everyone forget about them.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, what do they tell you about the conditions now? How is it different now under the Taliban?
For women, the condition is if you are a woman, you are not allowed to go to outside, you are not allowed to speak, and your voice shouldn't be heard in public.
Oh, I just read a New York Times story about that. The 114-page manifesto codified the Taliban government's decrees restricting women's rights. So it's no education beyond 6th grade, no employment in most workplaces, no leaving home if not covered head to toe. And now the sound of a woman's voice outside the home is not being allowed. Yes. Is that right?
Yes, that's true that they would be treated like that and outside, but the inside also they are under pressure. Most of men, they are jobless. People die because of hunger. So if they don't have job, the only thing that they beat their wives and their girls. They don't have any place. If they say something, so they don't have any support. I know one of the person that she was just 21, and then her husband beaten her so much that she was not able to walk for several weeks. But there is no agency for them to go and say that, oh, this happened to me. So they are under pressure from not outside, from inside. So it's unbearable.
And what do you think can be done about the situation for women in Afghanistan in the future, in the next few years?
I think the U.S. and other international organizations should help women. They should support women who run small businesses inside Afghanistan or local NGOs. Also give the platform to those women who had experienced. I'm here to just share the story of other women, but I'm not inside the country. I don't have the experience, but I just have the experience that I was there. So I don't have that experience, the pain and everything that they are going through. So the international community can support them, amplifying their voice and just allowing them to share their stories.
So Ann Sliney, if we could bring you in now.
Yes.
Tell us about SAGE, Support for Afghan Girls Education.
As Khadija mentioned, she feels a great responsibility to the girls left behind. And so she started a school in Kabul for girls over the age of 12 who are now banned from education. She has organized a group of women here in Rhode Island to help her with that project. I am one of those women, and we have raised funds to support the school. We currently have 100 students.
And we can't say where it is exactly, but it's in Kabul.
Yes.
And tell us about why you wanted to create that and the importance of that for the students there.
I always wanted to help women, especially women, because I came from very underprivileged background. I lost my father when I was 1 year old, so he died. And then my mother was the only breadwinner in our family. But my dream was to go to a private school. It was very well known in our country. And then there was a girl, she was a student, the same like me, but she was in Australia, and she wanted to pay my tuition fee. That enabled me that I went to that private school. So when I got to that school, I was so excited and I was so happy. And then I promised myself one day I will do the same thing, at least for one girl or two girls. So when I got to Brown, I thought, wow, this is now the best opportunity that I have, surrounded with all of these kind people and that they are willing to help me.
So, Anne, you're on the board, right?
Yes.
The nonprofit then is based here in Rhode Island?
Yes. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in Rhode Island.
And how much money have you raised for the school?
We've raised about $30,000, and that's really just word of mouth, friends, family making donations. There was a fundraiser in South County, and that money has really gone a long way. The costs are fairly low compared to the U.S., so we do get a lot of bang for the buck. We have frequent communication with the director of the school, almost daily. He is texting us about what's happening. He sends us videos and pictures of the girls. And I myself mentor one of the students. She's a 17-year-old girl, and I talk to her on the phone every Friday morning. She is just incredibly brave.
It must take incredible courage just to have the school operating day to day in Kabul right now.
It
right?
is. For those girls and their families, it is quite a risk for them.
Yeah, what would happen if the Taliban discovered it?
Well, they would certainly close it down, and they would probably punish everyone, teachers, students, families.
But how would you put it as to the value of having that school open right now?
To those girls, I believe it's the one thing in their lives that gives them hope, that gives them purpose. As Khadija said, you can imagine the level of depression and despair among these young girls who previously had opportunities and went to school and dressed modestly, of course, but not covered head to toe. So this is the one thing that they're hanging on to, and we are trying to offer them opportunities. We're helping them to get GED certificates, so high school equivalency, which they cannot get in Afghanistan, so that they would be able to go to college or university outside of Afghanistan. We're also offering online college courses. We have 4 girls that are starting in January.
Oh, wow.
We are allowing them to take Duolingo tests, which are the tests that measure your competency in English, and that's required for college admission. But all of those things cost money. And the more ideas we come up with and the more excitement the girls get about it, the more we get a little bit frantic about how are we going to find the funds to do all of these things. So we really need to raise some funds to further the opportunities that these girls have.
And tell us a bit about yourself and how you became involved with the school.
Well, I am a nurse, and I was the chief nursing officer of the Clinton Foundation, so did a lot of work in sub-Saharan Africa, mostly around HIV care. I'm retired now. Obviously, I have this interest, particularly in global health. I have a good friend who teaches at Brown who was a professor for Khadija, and she reached out to me to say, I have this student, and I think it would be interesting for you two to talk. And we had a Zoom call, and I said, wow, this is something really, really worthwhile, worth my time, worth my effort.
If listeners want to help the school, what can they do?
Well, we have a website. It's called SAGE Afghanistan, SAGE, so Support for Afghan Girls Education, Afghanistan. And if you go there, you can donate. I hope that people will. I promise you, we will use your funds wisely. Everything will be watched very closely.
What do you think of Khadija's journey?
Like she says, sometimes it seems like a movie. When I read the article back in 2021 about these girls escaping on the bus, it's just riveting. This story of them going to the airport and turned away and going back and turned away, and the chaos. And then to meet someone who was actually on those buses, who experienced that, it is just incredible. And to see how she's flourishing at Brown is just amazing.
Khadija, if this is a movie, what would you make the last scene be if you were the director?
We have hope, and still we are very determined. What happened, but we will create our own future.
Do you have a hope of going back to Afghanistan, and how would it change if you could control that?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Everything that I'm doing, I want to bring a difference in Afghanistan, especially the life of women. So if the situation get better, like if we would have a election and to have a president and an inclusive government.
And what's your hope for the women who remain in Afghanistan now?
They shouldn't be hopeless, because we are trying our best to change the situation. We are thinking of them, and they are not alone.
And I just want to ask you, like she mentioned that some of the women feel forgotten in Afghanistan. What's your message to our listeners about those women?
Don't forget them. There's so much in the world for us to be worried about, but there's really nothing that's as drastically evil as this. It's something we don't hear about every day. We don't think about it, but I would encourage us to think about it and do what we can. There's so many times when you're reading the news or you're watching the news and you're thinking about whatever the situation is, and you think you're helpless. You're helpless to help those poor people in Gaza or Israel or Lebanon or at the Mexican border. You're just helpless. But this has given me a sense like, oh, I don't have to be helpless. I can do something.
Yeah, right here in Rhode Island.
It's only for 100 girls, but it's something.
Khadija Nazari and Sliney, thank you for joining us today.
Well,
Thank you so much for having us.
Khadija Nazari and Ann Sliney say that listeners who want to help their school can learn more at sageafghanistan.org. That's SAGE Afghanistan.org. Rhode Island Report is a production of the Boston Globe in collaboration with Rhode Island PBS. Today's episode was produced by Megan Hall. Audio mixing and mastering by Marissa Ewing of Hemlock Creek Productions. Our music is from APM. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. See you next week. Looking to binge watch all your favorite PBS shows? You need Rhode Island PBS Passport. Masterpiece, Antiques Roadshow, Rhode Island PBS Weekly, and many more. Watch them all, anytime, and from any streaming device. Learn more about this member benefit at ripbs.org/passport. That's ripbs.org/